First chapter of the year for Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo, and it's a beauty. We have aura, we got hype, we got writing, we got callbacks, and most importantly, we got each other. Please like and subscribe. I'm falling off like crazy.
Sometimes you gotta close the door to open a window.
Anyways, so it turns out that Rika's ring is actually a cursed tool that was stored in the Gojo's clan storehouse. Now, when I imagine a cursed tool, I think weaponry, armor perhaps, like the gauntlets that Yuji used in the Shinjuku raid. However, rings and jewelry never really crossed my mind. They aren't something I've ever considered to be a cursed tool. Hell, for all of my reading of this series, not once has it ever occurred to me that this ring is actually a cursed tool or an object. So it's very interesting to find this out. But this cursed tool, however, is still to this day housing the will and form of Rika Orimoto, alongside that it now contains cursed energy reserves of one Yuta Akatsu, which, if you don't know, is one of the only characters in Jujutsu Kaisen to have a reserve of cursed energy that surpasses Gojo. He's literally second only to Sukuna in terms of cursed energy. Sukuna has more than double his. Tsurugi and Rika begin moving around the battlefield here in some sort of symbiotic form. That reminded me a lot of Eddie Brock and Venom, with the pair being able to interact with each other and Maru. But what I will say though is the artwork here is absolutely gorgeous. Once again, I cannot express how much Yuji Iwasaki's artwork has grown on me and caught me by surprise personally. In an alternate universe, I think seeing Yuji and Gege work together on the original series of Jujutsu Kaisen, I think it boggles the mind to think about how Yuji would have made Sukuna look even more menacing, to be honest with you. Some of the scenes that he has drawn within this series so far, I think had that been applied to Shinjuku Sukuna, that would have been a different ball game. Anyways, moving from the fight into Maru and Tsurugi here, Maru is completely and utterly caught off guard by the sudden increase and power of Tsurugi. Dashing forward at blistering speed, Tsurugi grabs rubble and clatters it across Maru's head. And bloody from the attack, Maru is questioning everything, finally identifying the ring around Tsurugi's neck as the cause of this power. The source of this power is his grandfather's ring. His cursed energy is off the chart. It's beyond any capacity of any normal person. This is the work of a sorcerer with extraordinary cursed energy, accumulated over years, no, decades. Now, there are a few things to note here from me personally. One, Yuta pouring his cursed energy into this object to protect his grandkids in the future is completely on course for him. Completely in character and par for the course for him. Two, this feels like a callback to JJK0 because when Geto and Yuta fought initially, Geto told Yuta that he can't just pour cursed energy into a vessel, it has to be done gradually, which is a very subtle way of showing Yuta's growth as he's grown older here. Three, I love the surprise from Maru here. He is completely taken aback at the concept of this ring and this person who poured his power into it being so far above him that he can't even fathom it realistically. Now imagine how he would feel laying eyes upon Gojo Sukuna. You've got to remember, this place where we're at in this time period for Modulo is what you would consider a weaker era. Yuka's dad and Tsurugi's dad concerned about the strength of the current sorcerers that were being produced in this era, so it makes me wonder how Maru would have reacted to seeing Gojo or Sukuna. His surprise only continues further when he tries to disrupt the ring itself with that third eye of his. Now, we've seen this multiple times used in Chapter 1, and then against the Curse user, and now again against Tsurugi. However, it simply doesn't work. Now, my theory here is that Maru's disruption of Curse techniques or cursed energy works like cursed speech. If he targets someone or something with cursed energy and control that far exceeds his own, then he won't be able to affect it, basically. Similar to how cursed speech leaves feedback on the user when they target someone with higher energy than theirs. Similar to what happened to Usami when he tried to use cursed speech on Dabura. Rika headbutts Maru from the floating rocks here into this body of water. Now keep this water in your mind for a second. Tsurugi apologizes to Maru. I can't hold back, not if I wish to win. Maru tells him not to apologize, after all, they are in the same boat. Now, Maru says this as the water that he stands upon transforms from water to land. Trees and plants form in place of the water that they stood atop, and we can see the water here and a fish flopping about. You can even see the splash marks where Maru landed here. These plants sprouting next in the next panels, you can see the texture of the ground change completely from water to ground. I would absolutely love an explanation of Mara's curse technique, but to be honest, as far as the story goes right now, I'm not sure it's super relevant. I also think it's super par for the course for Gege to sort of leave it up to the reader to figure out, show don't tell type thing. Now, the POV switches from Maru and Tsurugi back over to Mahoraga and Dabura, who notes how Mahoraga's entire aura has shifted. The aura is a perfect word for this situation because, as I mentioned before, the artwork in this chapter has been stunning. This, by far, has to be my personal favourite panel of Mahoraga. Him standing here, covered in shadows, looking down upon Dabura is simply beautiful. It is almost like a visual representation of the disparity in power between the two right now. Dabura, seeking to close this disparity, launches more light attacks at Mahoraga, and the attacks pierce Mahoraga will have zero effect as Maru brings us back to the Hakari renewal pose here. A lot of stuff in this chapter genuinely feels like we're getting callbacks. Again, I keep going to that cycles thing like a psychotic madman, but Jujutsu Kaisen really does repeat itself, and I feel like Gege and Yuji are working together to sort of recreate those moments to see if fans will notice it. It feels like little rewards for me personally. I hope when this fight does eventually get animated though, I would love to see Mahoraga grow in size as he did against Sukuna, because there's a growing fear in Dabura as he is watching Mahoraga adapt to everything that he's thrown at him. So I would love to see the odds not only physically being stacked against him, but figuratively also. Now here's where we get to something really interesting, because for the first time in the series, we are seeing how Mahoraga moves, how his attitude, how his aura shifts completely when he has adapted to an opponent's technique. Dabura fires light blasts into Mahoraga's face, and once again, it does nothing. Now I say the first time he is fully adapted here because when he fought Sukuna, Mahoraga was still taking damage from Sukuna's slashes and healing from them, and before that adaptation had completed, Sukuna figures out what the secret is and annihilated him with the Furnace attack. Now against Gojo, something similar happened. Gojo chose to stick to one attack, one technique at a time. First, Mahoraga adapted to Infinity, Blue, and then slowly was adapting to Red. Before that, Gojo completely annihilated him with Purple. He was still taking damage from both Gojo and Sukuna. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with the fact that versatility makes a great sorcerer within this world, and Dabura here lacking that versatility is proven to be his undoing, and further hammering home the point that versatility within the series is definitely needed. Now Mahoraga slashes Dabura's face here as he backs up down a road that, again, another callback. I couldn't help but feel this was a little callback to Sukuna vs Jogo. This panel just reminded me of it, the way Dabura is skating backwards on a curve here. Here's where Dabura figures out that Mahoraga's powers are actually adaptation. He figures out that Mahoraga is adapting to his abilities, and for the first time within the series, perhaps even Dabura's life, we can see fear spreading across this dude's face like a cold winter frost. Contemplating whether he is out of options, the possibility of losing dawns upon him when he starts to think about Dura and a conversation that they had in the past. Now, I've said this before, and I will say it again to the high heavens, but I think Gege writing this story within the 18 chapters, the short space of time that he's had, and managing to accomplish characters like this within that short period of time is absolutely beautiful. Not only has he created a wide variety of characters who fit into the quote-unquote strongest role, but he's characterized them in a perfect show-don't-tell way. Sukuna needed no explanation as to why we understood that he was the strongest. Gojo needed no explanation as to why we understood that he was the strongest. And now Dabura is joining those ranks. However, Dabura is only slightly different in how Gege is approaching it. Everything that we have seen so far from this series suggests Dabura was on the level of Sukuna. However, I would be more inclined to say that he is more in line with Gojo than anything, perhaps even Teen Gojo right here. And this isn't in a power scaling sense, this is just simply due to his strength. Dabura, much like Gojo in his teen years, had never had any sort of fight or trouble or reason to be in danger. He's always won everything, or people have just straight up never even bothered fighting him because he's that strong. And because of that, he's truly never been in a fight where his life is on the line. And with that strength and those experiences, Dabura has carried with him an arrogance and expectation that he could simply never lose, much like Gojo did just before he met Toji. But as Toji defeated Gojo, Mahoraga is on the brink of defeating Dabura. And it's here where Dabura comes to his own answer as to what strength is, as to what a fighter must be, as what it must mean to be a warrior. And that answer is that Dabura must fight to protect his friends, to protect his family. That's what his strength must be used for. Not because he can, but because he must. And with this renewed vigor and confidence, he catches a punch from Mahoraga, breaking the blade that would have impaled him. Now, once again, the narrator kicks in. Dabura's technique and light. However, Dabura's body couldn't withstand the acceleration of light itself. It had never achieved light speed before. The dance of Dabura, Karaba, near the speed of light, beyond the limits of humanity. Dabura is now settling on the plan to simply pummel Mahoraga into submission. Seeing Dabura lock in like this almost makes me want to root for him, despite knowing that if he wins, Yuka's fate is sort of sealed, and if he wins, it will be bittersweet. And it's very complex here because Dabura's not a bad guy, he's not a villain here, it's just the situations have pitted these two against each other. But it just makes me wonder what is the other side to Dabura's technique here. I'm assuming that is speed and light, potentially, but those two kind of go hand in hand, so I'm not sure as to what the other half of Dabura's technique could be. So if you guys know, let me know in the comments, but that is everything from me. If you've not already, please be sure to like and subscribe, turn on the notifications, follow me on Instagram, support the Patreon, and as always, I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much fucking love, big fucking kisses, peace.